What if a single government memo, just one paragraph buried in the shadows of bureaucracy, could wipe out $170 billion in sales, kill over 500,000 American jobs, and cripple $31.3 billion in annual tax revenue? What if that same policy, meant to protect American industry, triggered a $1.3 trillion supply chain collapse, sent hybrid car prices soaring by $4,400, and pushed regional unemployment in some states up by 2.6%? It sounds impossible until you realize it's already happening. With a 25% tariff on Japanese vehicles now under serious White House consideration, the most vital arteries of America's auto economy, from the factories of Kentucky to the tech labs of Nevada, are bracing for impact. This isn't just another trade dispute. This is a detonation countdown aimed straight at the core of U.S. manufacturing. Will America hit the brakes in time or drive itself straight into economic gridlock? Let's go inside and break down exactly what's happening, who it affects, and why the fallout could be far more devastating than anyone expects. It began with a sentence buried deep inside a government memo, a proposal barely discussed in public, but potent enough to shake the entire structure of America's industrial economy. A 25% tariff imposed not on oil, not on steel, but on cars. More precisely, on every Japanese-branded vehicle and component crossing U.S. borders. By invoking Section 232 under the guise of national security, the White House has fired the first shot in a policy gamble that threatens to unravel one of the most profitable, high-employment, and innovation-rich sectors in modern American manufacturing. On the surface, it looks like a patriotic play, a bold effort to protect American workers and curb foreign dependence. But under the hood lies an engine primed to explode. This is not a policy adjustment. It is an economic warhead, and it's aimed straight at the transmission of America's $1.3 trillion automotive ecosystem. Imagine a map stretching from the Detroit assembly floors to the belt-tightening plants of Alabama, the hybrid lines of Kentucky, and the logistics arteries of Indiana. Now imagine a massive red light flashing across all of them. That is what the Japanese automotive network represents in the U.S., an interdependent machine powering 43.6% of passenger and light commercial vehicle sales. In 2023 alone, Japanese brands sold 6.32 million vehicles in the U.S., not as imports from Tokyo docks, but from factories in Texas, Mississippi, Ohio, and Indiana. Factories built with American hands, managed with American engineers, operated with American grit. And this network feeds over 500,000 jobs. It contributes over $170 billion in direct sales, $47 billion in added industrial value, and $31.3 billion in annual tax revenues. But now it faces the policy equivalent of a wrecking ball. For policymakers, the idea is simple: penalize foreign players to lift domestic ones. But in today's hyper-integrated supply environment, that theory falls apart. Japanese automakers in America are not foreign invaders. They are domestic anchors. Toyota's Texas line uses 65% North American components. Honda's Ohio facilities hit 68%. Even Nissan and Subaru achieve over 50% local content. These factories are more embedded in the American economy than some so-called American brands. A 25% tariff will not just hit imported vehicles. It will strike everything from transmissions built in Mexico to EV battery modules sourced from Japan to control systems engineered in Southeast Asia. The result is not a bump in cost, it is a landslide. Toyota's 7.1% operating margin disappears. Honda's 5.6% is wiped clean. Nissan, already struggling at 4.3%, collapses into unprofitability. The immediate boardroom response? Freeze investments, cancel expansions, halt recruitment. Projects planned for Kentucky, Alabama, and Indiana are shelved. Strategic managers now speak in hushed tones about backshoring, returning production to Japan, or shifting capacity to Canada and Mexico, where tariff structures are friendlier. The implications are catastrophic. Each factory closure doesn't just kill 10,000 jobs, it poisons an entire ecosystem. From the seat fabric supplier in Ohio to the chip design startup in Nevada, the supply chain disintegrates. And the damage isn't theoretical, it's already calculable. Toyota directly supports 125,600 US jobs, Honda 80,100, Nissan 130,700, add Subaru, Mazda, Mitsubishi, and Suzuki, and we cross the 500,000 threshold. These aren't paper jobs, These are communities, schools, gas stations, grocery stores. When the auto plant goes dark, everything else dims with it. States like Mississippi and Alabama are particularly vulnerable. Japanese automakers represent 15 to 22% of total manufacturing employment in these regions. If the production lines shut down, regional unemployment could jump by 2 to 2.6%. That's not a fluctuation, it's a depression. In a town like Lafayette, Indiana, the closure of Subaru's plant would ripple through 100 local businesses. In Marysville, Ohio, Honda's disappearance would crush tax revenue. Small towns don't recover from industrial amputation, they bleed out. In 2023, Japanese automakers paid nearly $25 billion in federal and state taxes. Add component sourcing, logistics, and infrastructure fees, and the total climbs to $31.3 billion. If sales drop and factories close, this cash flow shrinks. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that a market contraction could reduce government revenue by $18 billion in 2026 and $26 billion by 2027. Over 3 years, the total loss in tax and service fees may reach $58 billion. That's enough to cripple school funding in multiple states or delay essential infrastructure upgrades nationwide. Consumers will feel the sting almost immediately. Hybrid vehicles, 3 out of 5 sold in America are Japanese, will jump in price by $4,000 to $5,000. Subcompact SUVs will follow. Dealerships will see inventory shortages and longer delivery times. Some consumers will shift to U.S. brands, but the capacity isn't there. Ford and GM are betting on full electric. Tesla cannot retool for hybrids. No American brand is positioned to flood the hybrid SUV market quickly. Approval for new factories takes 22 months. Minimum. Replacement of even half of Japanese volume wouldn't arrive until 2028. In the meantime, families will delay purchases, turn to used cars, or stretch loans. The Consumer Confidence Index could fall by 6 to 8 points. Inflation expectations could spiral again. The Fed's soft landing plan shattered. The crisis won't stop at assembly lines. Japanese investors hold $1.06 trillion in U.S. Treasury bonds. If diplomatic or economic retaliation leads to even a 5% sell-off, yields could rise 32 to 45 basis points. Mortgage rates will spike, business loans will grow costlier, credit card APRs will balloon, and in a fragile macroeconomic environment, that ripple could trigger a wave. It's not just Detroit and Tokyo watching, it's Wall Street, the Fed, and every American with a savings account. The biggest loss may not be in dollars, but in capability. Japanese automakers brought lean manufacturing, just-in-time logistics, Kaizen, and high-precision training programs to the U.S. These aren't buzzwords. They're the reason American plants run at 98% uptime. They're the reason suppliers meet global benchmarks. Today, over 190,000 U.S. workers are certified in Japanese manufacturing systems. If these OEMs leave, that knowledge base dissolves. Engineering labs partnered with Toyota and Nissan shut down. Technician schools funded by Honda closed doors. Productivity growth, already slow, could stall or reverse. That 0.22% annual bump in manufacturing output tied to innovation? Gone. Tariff supporters argue that other automakers will fill the void. But Georgia Tech's Logistics Institute warns that only 40% of Japanese market share could be replaced within 3 years. The remaining 60%? Delayed, deflected, or deleted. Increased demand for used vehicles will drive prices up. Financing costs will rise, families will hold off on major purchases, and most critically, suppliers without Japanese contracts will struggle to retool for other OEMs, many of whom have very different specs, cycles, and volumes. This isn't just a change in logos, it's a change in physics. This isn't just about the economy, it's about the way America builds things. For 3 decades, Japanese-American cooperation has refined U.S. manufacturing. It's made plants safer, more efficient, and more sustainable. If that legacy is undone, we return to high-inventory, low-efficiency production, a model long since discarded by the global elite. This regression would be devastating. It would undo 30 years of evolution in exchange for political optics. On paper, the tariff delivers customs revenue, perhaps $78 billion over 5 years. But the costs? $1.3 trillion in lost supply chain value. Over 500,000 threatened jobs, tens of billions in lost tax revenue, disrupted bond markets, inflation acceleration, strategic regression in innovation. It's like trading the engine of a car for the exhaust pipe and calling it a win. This isn't a drill, it's a detonation countdown. A 25% tariff on Japanese auto imports won't just shake up the market. It will blow a hole through the center of America's manufacturing system. It risks turning boom towns into ghost towns, innovation hubs into abandoned labs, and trade surpluses into fiscal sinkholes. We're not debating trade. We're debating whether to dismantle one of the most effective international industrial partnerships in modern history. If Japanese automakers pull out, America won't crash overnight, but it will stall. And once you lose momentum in an economy this big, restarting the engine is exponentially harder. The question isn't whether Japan belongs in America's automotive future. The question is whether America can afford a future without Japan.